Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to have Otim back. So Otim, welcome back, dude.
Hey man, good to be back.
All right, Otim. So for people who don't know who you are, most people in the community know who you are, but those who are new to the channel, can you please let them know what your full type is?
Yep, I'm audio, NITI, sleep, consume, play. And well, I was typed a few months ago, but my social type is number 4.
Gotcha. And you're blast last. So
Yep, yeah,
okay.
last.
So, dude, you had an interesting journey with your social typing since getting your social type. Um, and it's something that you disagreed with for the longest time until recently when you had like I guess a change in how you approached it
Mm,
mentally. So can you share with everyone kind of like the history
the
from
journey.
the journey exactly from when you
Yeah,
first
yeah, yeah.
typed, your disagreement with it, and then kind of like the conclusion you came up with more recently?
Yeah, no, sure. So the full journey. First I thought I was a 2. And I guess this was like early last year. It came kind of from my perspective of like relating to the anecdotes and things like that. And then I also got typed by Michael, who I think he was temporarily sort of a third operator at the time. He's not anymore, I don't think, but he was a little bit like he was like he was a little bit stuck between 204, and then we had some back and forths, and he was like, yeah, I can see two. And then I also just spoke to community members, and it kind of just got like mirrored back, sort of, yeah, I think you're a 2 kind of thing. So I ran with that. It made sense to me, kind of aligned with me. I mean, but it kind of makes sense. Everyone kind of wants to be a 2 anyways, but it made sense. I thought I was a 2. And even if I wasn't, it kind of, I mean, directionally, that's where I want to go anyways. So I was like, yeah, sure. And then I think this was last year, September or August time, masculine sensory. Dave was doing typings for social typings, and I reached out thinking, yeah, I guess I'll just get my social type confirmed through Dave. And then he typed me as a 4, but it wasn't because I did the whole video recording, the whole doc of like, okay, this is what's going on. But he kind of just typed me immediately. So he typed me like within like 2 or 3 minutes. Like he replied back like, I think this is your type. So he didn't watch the videos and stuff. It was more of a because he kind of explained, look, we'll either do a full typing and ask you to pay, or we'll just do a quick typing because we know you and you don't have to pay. So it was just kind of like the free version of like, I think I know your type. This is what I think your type is. So I got that, and I was a bit like, well, I don't really have any feedback. I don't have any contextualization to prioritize it. I just have sort of the classes, and I already know what I've seen in the classes. So I was a little bit like I don't it's hard for me to take it super seriously, but whatever. That's my type. So I kind of just like, if anyone asked, I was just like, this, I was typed to 4 or whatever. And yeah, just over a few months, people would just kind of give me feedback of like, you should get retyped, or like they'd see something different. Or, and by the way, that doesn't mean people people's view might be accurate to type. Because look, how good are people at typing realistically? I don't know. And especially with social type, because I think even Dave and Chan are a bit like, we're not 100% clear about it. So that kind of lowers the standard for everyone else. Like anyone else that has an opinion on social type, it's gonna have a shaky foundation anyways. But yeah, people were like, maybe you should get retyped. So I was like, yeah, I'll get retyped then. This time try get them to actually look at the videos and stuff like that. So got retyped in Jan, and this time Dave did look at the videos. And we had some back and forth voice notes as well. So it was good in that way. And he typed me as a 4 again. Um, and I was much more open to it because the voice notes he sent me were good because it was more non-specific. I think in the classes there's a lot more certainty of like, this type does this, this anecdote matches this. And that's where I had like conflict, because I was like, that I don't really match these things that you're saying per se. Could be obviously subjective bias, but I'm like, yeah, there's some things where I'm just like, this is, I don't think anyone in my life would say I'm this way per se. Um, the voice notes were more non-specific, which made it easier for me to be open. And yeah, I guess I can go into a bit more, but essentially I was open to it. I was like, okay, I guess I'll figure this out. I had, what questions did I have for him? I guess I'll specify. So things like, for me, I'm not, he wasn't, Dave didn't say to me, you're four for these specific reasons. As such, he wasn't like, you do these things, you do the hangout time thing, you it was more ruling things out. His main point was, I can't quite, because he was at first under the impression I was a two when he watched my videos, and he said, I thought you were two. Then I thought about it. Then I went to Shan. Shan saw you as a four, and then that's when he kind of came to the conclusion I'm a four. And his point was, he couldn't quite see enough responsibility coin to be like, that's at the top, right? So, and he could see the friend side. I can see the friend side. He could see the friend side. So then that kind of just, by process of elimination, you're a four, you know. So it wasn't, so it was a more generic voice note. I asked him specific questions like, hey, I don't really hang out that much. I don't really care that much about hanging out with people. I'm a very busy person all the time. And his point was, yeah, there's a spectrum of fours. Some fours just actually don't like people. And he's like, you know, we need like at least 1,000 fours to come through before we have the actual archetype of what it is at the core, not just like these anecdotes. I was like, cool, fair enough. That's fine. And then I asked specifically about the happiness thing, because I think that's the main thing for me. Because I was like, because that's the basis of, so the social types is, it's a picture of what the trajectory is of your happiness long term, um, and kind of like where you're going to find peace and happiness. And that was where I was like, you know, I guess I am limited in that I can only make that judgment of myself from who I am today. Maybe I think, oh, 20 years from now, this is what I want based on who I am now. But that's a limited perspective. It's always limited. Maybe 10 years from now, I will want something different. But still, that is where I was like, look, I just, I can't see that, like, that that is the long-term view of my happiness. Let's say with the stereotypical fours, it's like finding friends and community and finding that kind of like stability in life. um like my experience has been very, me moving away from that has made me much more happier, me doing what I want to do, me following my path and doing things I think that people, because I work a lot and people are just like, you know, maybe you shouldn't do that. Just, yeah, people saying different things. And the more I move away from that, the happier I've been. It just, you know, it's like that thing in the Matrix where Trinity gives Neo that option of, do you want to stay with the life you've kind of lived already, or do you want to try this different thing, you know? And for me, it feels like it's hard for me to imagine, to ground myself in that archetypal view of what the four happiness is, just considering what my experiences have been, where I've been the most unhappy, and then where I've been at this point in my life the most happy. And I imagine I'm going to continue in this direction. So I was just like, I don't really see that picture of happiness in the future that you guys are painting. And he was again more open to it. He was a bit more like, there is, you know, he was like, you might not be specifically a good fit for that, A, because you're a mope, so you're not going to fit the stereotypical four very well, and also they don't know the full spectrum of the fours, so might not be that exact model of, oh, you know, happy friends time, barbecues, all that stuff, right? um but his point was like, there'll be some kind of settling down in the future, like you'll go, like people go through different phases. Maybe I'm in my phase where I'm like super driven and stuff, and he's like, maybe in the future you ease out, you know, or settle down. And I mean, it's pretty reasonable. I can't argue with that. It's also hard for me to see it because what does settling down mean? Does that mean family? Does that mean you stop pushing up in your career? But you know, I could see that from any social type, even a one. Like, let's say you get to VP of a company, and you could keep pushing for CEO, but like you might settle at VP. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what if I settle at VP, or what if I settle at CEO and I could be bigger than CEO? Technically, I am settling. So I don't know. It's I can't argue with it, but it was a pretty yeah, those were like, I guess that's how I found myself a bit more comfortable with it because it was a bit more open. So that was better. And yeah, so that last few months I was like, yeah, I'll just try understand it a bit more. The specializing was an issue for me because that I guess I just don't know what it is exactly. They're just trying to understand it, talking to different people. And it was just a few months. And I was just like, it's still like, it's still, I don't know what it is. And I'm kind of like, what's the point? Like, I'm doing what I'm doing anyways. I feel like I know what my goals are. I know where I'm going. I like, what's really the return on investment in this? Let me just close this chapter. And I was like, yeah. So and I was just like, yeah, I guess I just disagree with it because I don't, I'm not seeing anything solid. A few months down, I've tried to understand this. I even sent Dave an email like, yeah, this is where I am. I don't really see it. So, that's what it is. Um, and the reason, and I came to realize something after that, because I do think there's still issues with the anecdotes and stuff. But at some point, and this was like a few weeks ago, I realized, oh, I actually have a really big emotional hang up. Um, Logically, yes, there are issues with identifying with the social type if it just doesn't fit. But I could feel an emotional hang up where I was also emotionally like against the four social type. And that's where I did my own self-processing and understanding where it came from in me, resolving that, and then coming to terms with like, I'll go with the type. And yeah, and like that, this kind of comes into my current view is there's like an external perception of the social types, which I think might cause conflict in other people as well. So I guess this is the value of me kind of sharing it. And for me, the way that relates, because I have an issue with perfectionism. So it's like, wanting to appear perfect. And that might be different for other people. Like, even when I was younger, I had a counselor say I have something called clinical perfectionism. And it's a very abstract thing. It's not specifically like, oh, I have to do this thing perfectly. It's more so kind of the standards you set for yourself and it being unhealthy. So I just realized this is just the perfectionism thing. I should focus on my internal perception of myself, and it's just building self-respect. And the only way to do that is allowing the external to be whatever it is, right? So it's like you transcend the label either by categorically denying it, or you just kind of accept it and you just focus on the thing that matters. And I still think everyone should be critical of the anecdotes, which I still will continue to be. But I just realized like like if I really am gonna be the best of whatever I can be, this shouldn't matter. And I can just kind of accept it. I don't need to deny it or whatever. Because I actually don't know what the types are. So I can just be like, they've typed me a 4, and I might learn stuff. I might like a year from now be like, oh yeah, that's what that is. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what is like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. So I'm come full circle. I'm neutral. I'm kind of just accepting of it. Not that I know I'm this type for specific reasons, but that it's just a healthier approach to it. And I think I just thought it'd also be good first for my processing to just be like, this is where I'm at, because it's been months since I've been tagged, but also for other people, if they're conflicted, they can be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's where I've been, and maybe this is the right direction. So yeah, that's the full journey.
All right, man. Yeah, that's a nice blast there that you got there. It's
Yeah.
loaded up, nice and loaded up. I can see that you've been preparing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been processing this for a
Yeah.
few weeks because it's like it was a processing I had for myself, and I was like, okay, what does this mean? Where did this start? And what's my current view of things? So yeah, it's processed, very processed.
I think there's a few thoughts I had when you were sharing your journey, getting type with your social type specifically. The first thing is, they do know you, so that kind of gives you an advantage in terms of getting type. I think a lot of people they go through the system and David Chan only knows them from the videos, but you've been around
Mm,
year one, so you have a special situation, I think, in terms of like they actually know you. It's kind of like me, like they actually know me, right? So
yeah,
we have an advantage when we're getting type in from that perspective. Um, I think being a mope definitely affects your social type a lot because like my girlfriend's a number four and she always says like she doesn't like people, but then when she sees people, she's never been happier, which is retarded. Like,
yeah,
like what's going on here? Like what you're saying and what you think is happening is actually not true in reality. So that's something that you always have
yeah,
to keep in mind. The thing though also is I've also known you for like so long. Like I interviewed you like since year one also. So you're like one of the first people I interviewed. And the one thing I've always wondered since the social type thing came out is like, what do you actually specialize on? Like I don't know you. Dude, like I've known you for like all this time. I'm like, if I were to like, because you can pin people to like a specific role or job,
yeah,
right? I'm like, I have no freaking clue what you even do. Like, I have no freaking
yeah,
clue what you even do because you do a bunch of different shit, right? Which sounds more like number two-ish. So,
yeah.
but then you are double
That's
activated ST consume, which means you're
yeah,
double activated number two and double activated collecting skills essentially with the
yeah, yeah,
STI, and it's double masculine too. So it's like, oh, okay, that's why that is a legitimate explanation for that actually.
yeah.
What
I will push back on the second. So, like, actually, to agree, I don't know what, and this was my issue with the specializing. And I'm assuming, sure, I'm safe with specializing. Maybe I just don't understand what it is.
right?
Because even I asked Dave about that, and he just said, talk to other people so you understand it, because I might not be seeing myself. And tried to do that. I didn't get anything out of it. I don't know what I specialize in. I mean, I've come to terms with like, I think I just specialize in self-management, like just managing myself, which is very DI, but like I just learn all the things which relate to managing myself, like whether that's, health, mindset stuff, I like neuroscience, supplements, productivity, like all this stuff is to just manage myself. Um, but I'm sure consume and just like the DI of it comes into it. But I think I don't, because I know Dave said something differently to you, but to me, even in my voice note, he was like, my type, because it's so mopey and introverted, it would be more geared to being a three. And I think he said that to someone else in a voice note, that the introvertedness particularly makes you, and IJ makes you very three-ish. Um, I mean, he said something differently to you, and I think that they've used the animals as well previously to be like consumers number two, blasters number three, but yeah, it feels like two different things, but yeah, I think there's different parts going on, but yeah, in my voice note, he was like, he was trying to factor in the fact that my type would lean into three anyways, and he was trying to say, would that bump down my responsibility? Because I'd be the least responsible based on my OP type. So he was like trying to factor that in, and he still couldn't see responsibility at the top. So I don't know. I still don't know the specializing thing. My general point of view at the moment is like I will specialize at whatever I need to, right? Because at the moment I'm doing customer success. So I work in customer success. My background, I did psychology and then I did neuroscience. Now I'm doing customer success. I'm using that. It's not something I'm like passionate about, but I'm just the reason I got into it because I wanted to do like my goal was actually to do business psychology and like open up my own consultancy. And I started at customer success as a stepping stone because you learn about different departments because you liaise with different departments to like for different projects, right? So I was like, perfect. I'm gonna work with different departments. I'll understand how a business works because I didn't know that. And like the clients that I work with are like from every different industries, like healthcare, life science, aviation, food, manufacturing, like just so I was like, I'm just gonna get the absolute spectrum, which is a good foundation for when I do more business psychology stuff. But I did the business psychology route to starting a business. Eventually, I was like, this is so dumb. This is so long-winded because I have to do another doctorate and then open it up. I was like, what's the point? Like, it's just like you feel like you're supposed to use this prior thing, but it was just making me unhappy. So then I was like, I don't need that. I don't need to do that because my goal is really just to have my own business. Like, it doesn't matter what it is as such. So I was like, I'll just keep scaling up from customer success. So one of my goals, trajectory wise, is to chief customer success officer, which is I guess that's just like the peak of that like path, but it's I do want to use that like for my own stuff. Like there's other things I want to do for sure, but yeah, and it's like I do have to go into the mindset of I then have to specialize in this thing or like whatever I need to specialize in, I'll do. I don't know if that's real specializing or not, because again, it's just anecdotes. Like there's something at the core of it, maybe I'm missing. But in my mind, I'm like, I'll just learn and if I need to focus on because here's the thing, I guess I get conflicted with social types is I think some people get into the pattern of either complaining about like the opposite of like it's like they feel validated and then they complain about like the other stuff that the other type does like oh these guys do this like I just want to do my thing or whatever it is they complain and also get stuck in oh because this is what makes me happy this is the way I have to do life like I think that's so limiting like whatever type I am I don't think it's good for me to think of it as like I should just stick to this. Like I think you should just learn how to do well everything, even if it's your last part or your leading part, whatever it is. So yeah, I'll just specialize wherever I need to. Is just my perception at the moment. So
Well, if you're a number four, you can do both in the middle, like double, kind of like double decider-ish, but like for social type, because you have um narrow narrow focus and also general responsibility. So narrow responsibility versus general responsibility, you're gonna have that in the middle, right? So you can,
mm,
if you're a number four, you can do both essentially. Like that's one of the biggest cross check for number four is like, yeah, if you need to be a manager, you can. If you need to specialize, you can. So that's why it's kind of confusing.
yeah,
Which one you can do because you can do both. You can actually do both, and then because you have double masculine SD consume, and people get this wrong all the time, like in the community, like people are so dumb. No offense, but like people are so dumb. Like, oh, the blast is not specialization. Shut up. It's like you're looking at it from a sensory terms. It's you have to look at it from conceptual. Okay, like if you look at the original definition of blast, it's taking your known information and you're executing upon it to
yeah.
benefit the tribe essentially, right? So and it's like Bruce Lee, with Bruce Lee when he has like a famous quote about like I don't fear.
1,000 kicks.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
the person who, yeah, the thousand, like the variety is not important. It's the
yeah, yeah,
sole practice. So he would be like a specialist essentially, right? Um, so it's like, so if you look at it from that conceptual term, then blast is specialization because you have that narrow focus, right? And then consume, you're gathering skill set. That's what you are. Like you're gathering
yeah,
skills, but doesn't mean you're getting better at it. It's like, again, I like to use the analogy. It's like just because you watch kung fu movies doesn't mean you're good at kung fu, right? Like you actually need
yeah,
to practice kung fu. That's blast, right? So but then you would have both. So essentially you could do both. And like from the sound of things, that's kind of like what you're doing is like you're gathering all this different skill set that you need to build your business at some point. So right now
yeah,
you're in a gathering phase right now, right? Gathering skill
yeah.
set specifically. And a lot of number
Yeah.
fours do have a business. They've made some videos on it, and a lot of are very successful. So just because you're a four doesn't mean you're not going to go big. Like Warren Buffett, for example, is like in the Forbes top 10 all the time.
Yeah.
So he's a number four. He loves friends. He loves having a good time, and he's leveraging talent and friendship to get ahead, right? So you don't need to be like a relentless number one to get ahead, because if you look at the Forbes top 10, it's like all over the place. You have like number twos there, number ones there, number threes, number fours. Like
Yeah.
everyone is there. So it has nothing to do with social type,
I
It's like,
agree. Yeah. I agree with and this is why I don't even know if it matters. If, like, for example, you're saying I have specializing and responsibility in the middle.
right.
I think if you get to that, like you said with Warren Buffett or whoever, I feel like you have to do all four. Or like you have to, like there's like and my orientation is always just objective reality, because like even like it would imply like, oh, ego is where my real conflict is. Like even that, I'm just like, because one of my goals is to be like a thought leader in a particular domain. So it's like, what there's no lever that I'm like, okay, this one's gonna be the one where I struggle with or I can't do or whatever. I think if you get to a position, there's like just objective reality is like you have to do these things. Like you don't have a choice. So yeah, like it is useful to know obviously where your leverage is, like strategically, of course. Like you can lean on it first and then let the others catch up. I do think it's useful, but it's so like for me it doesn't help. Personally, for me it doesn't help getting me thinking that way. I waste so much time, and like I just feel so much better just, and this is actually what growth mindset is. Like if you read like Carol Dweck's like book Mindset, like growth mindset is to like absolve yourself from labels where you create an expectation of like, it's like creating an identity out of your performance, as opposed to I can just learn what I need to learn. The most growth mindset thing is I can just get good at anything. Like there's and like you could say that's naive, of course, because you're missing out on where your actual talents and things like that. But I think it's just, for me, like that's just my baseline. It's just like growth mindset of I will do what I need to do, kind of thing. And you just, I don't know, like I think that's where more happiness comes from than like being like, I need to fit this, because the concept is still being worked out. Like a year from now, Dave and Chan might say, actually, we were wrong about this. This is the more refined version. So I don't need to. What is the most open approach I can tackle this, where, you know, like I have to be self-directed. That's basically my thing. I have to be self. I hear your point though, because like the blast as a function, as an animal by itself, lends more to the specializing. Consume lends more to the two, because you're learning different stuff.
Right.
Um, my my headphones are low battery. Anyways, the only thing is just the full, when it's like the full type. If you're introverted or extroverted, if you're consume sleep blast, let's say, that's more like the consume helps, but then the introvertedness pushes you into the read. But I think I don't, at the end of the day, I actually don't know, because it's just abstract. Maybe Dave and Chan will say, oh, actually it's this now. So I'm pretty open about it. I have my ideas, you have yours. But I don't know. I'm not here to say what is true, because I don't know. But yeah.
I think you don't need to practice your ego, because you already have the type that has the biggest ego, like masculine TI, double activated. He's
Yeah.
like very egotistical. So I don't think you need to work on that. I think that's already activated by default. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
your pathway would not be the same as as other people who are social type number four, right? Because like my
Yeah. Yeah.
girlfriend, for example, she has FI, so it's not TI, it's completely different, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
TI has a much bigger ego than FI people, right? So
Yeah.
unless you're
Well,
unless you're
do
number one,
they?
unless you're number one.
Yeah. No,
Number
that's
one,
it. Wait, TI has more. You think TI is more egotistical than
number
FI?
one,
I'm curious.
TI is the most egotistical function there is. Like you can't be wrong, like especially masculine TI specifically. Feminine TI
Mm,
maybe different. Okay, that's sure. But like masculine TI,
yeah,
extremely egotistical. Like that is like
that's
cannot be
interesting.
wrong. I am not wrong. Like if someone tells you wrong in your head, even your double-sider, you're like, okay, but inside your head, you're like, you're wrong. So it's like
Yeah,
how
yeah,
egotistical you are to think you're right. Like the TE people already
yeah,
know you're wrong. Like it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
they've seen you from a spectrum of other TIs, and another TI is more correct than you are. So
yeah, yeah,
just like you with the FE is like, okay, well, I've seen a bunch of FIs, and this person's FI is the best. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So it's egotistical to think that you're right, even though the tribe has already seen the spectrum that there's another guy or girl that is kicking your ass in this department already. So maybe tone down your ego, learn from that
yeah,
person, which is gonna hurt because your ego, because TI thinks I know better. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
so
think I trigger TEs even when I think I'm wrong. This is it's really interesting because my ex, she was typed SEFI, so I know she has TE as well, and
yeah,
she would point this out, and like I noticed this with TEs. Even when I know I'm wrong, I feel like there's a kind of social TE thing where you guys tend to you're like if you're wrong, you'll like say like, oh, that was a mistake, or you'll kind of like just be more vocal. Like let's say you're in a group and you fuck something up, you'll like say, ah, I fucked up or that was a mistake. So I don't do that, right? So like if I make a mistake, it's like if I know I made a mistake, I know I made a mistake. I don't need to tell anyone. I don't need to be like, oh, I'm so dumb or whatever. It's like I saw it and I'll just correct it in the future. But what she would be like, you need to like just say it or own it. And I'm like, I'm not, it's not for you. Like it's for me to fix, right? So I don't need to vocalize it. But then she'll get the vibe. She thinks I don't think I made a mistake. But I know that. It's just in my head. Like I just don't say it, because I'm just telling myself.
okay.
So then they'll think I didn't realize. But I have realized. I just don't say. Or like in a debate, if I'm wrong, I'll just like, oh yeah, that's okay, that's fair. And like I'll just take that. And she might think I still think I'm right. But because she needs me to say, yeah, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Da, 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 but I just don't do it because like I'm like it's implied. Unless I argue with you, just assume that like I understand. I don't know. That's just me, but I can see there's a social thing I miss every time. So
Well, I think anecdotally speaking, you're not going to be as argumentative like the ENTPs are, right? Especially like
yeah,
double masculine NT consume ENTPs. Like those guys are like the most argumentative. Like being wrong is something they would never admit, even to themselves. And you're kind of like one notch away from that because your N is feminine, right? So you don't have
yeah, yeah, yeah,
double masculine NT. So there is
yeah. It's
still a part
different.
of you that's more flexible in that inner world of yours, right? Versus like,
Yeah,
if you're like yeah, double masculine um NT, then it's gonna be
yeah. It's different.
like I am the smartest, you are all wrong. My
Yeah, yeah,
logic is superior and you can't figure out what
yeah,
I can figure out, kind of deal. So um it is
yeah. Oh
it's fine.
man.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, the people that think that way, they're probably you're limiting the amount you can. You're limiting your own intelligence because you're not allowing yourself to learn, or to get smarter. Because you're just saying I'm going to stay at this level of intelligence. Really, the only way you get smarter is by seeing your mistakes. They're like there's no other way. You don't get smarter by asserting. Yeah, it's like that's the only way you get smarter. So if someone is stuck in that way, then probably not the best thing.
Who's that guy that Dave
Yeah.
hates? The ENTP guy, Shapiro, Ben Shapiro. Yeah,
Oh, Shapiro. Yeah,
I
yeah,
hate
yeah.
him, right? Because like he's so cringe, and it's kind of interesting to see someone that is his type because obviously he what's the word I'm looking for here? He's a number one, right?
Mm,
So it's like the goal is like number ones are, as Dave would say, delusional, right? And it being delusional sounds like an insult, but it actually is not. It just depends on in what aspect are you delusional? Because sometimes if you have
yeah.
delusional confidence, you can win, and that is needed to
Yeah, it's
succeed,
true.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah,
in
yeah.
another case,
Self-belief.
you can also be delusional that you're the smartest when you're not, like kind of like bench
Yeah, yeah,
who's not. Although he has some valid points. I've seen some of his debates, and I'm like, okay, I agree with some of his points. So I'm not like thinking like he's a dumbass or anything. Actually, he's smart. He's
yeah,
smarter than he's not. Like he's actually more socially stupid than anything. Like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
maybe lower EQ than IQ, but like, you know,
yeah,
but
yeah, and it varies as well because I think because I know Destiny is similar, but he's double masculine, right? Destiny, the debater guy, he can be quite like obviously he debates people, but me watching him, um, I like his TI because he can be more open to like learning and understanding stuff. Um, yeah, from what I've seen, he seems more open. So I think it probably varies person by person, but yeah, I don't know. I don't
yeah,
know.
I do think feminine TI is very interesting. It's it
Yeah,
it's like softer, and
yeah,
more flexible. So in a way, it's kind of like it helps them be more growth mindset because they're like, oh, I can let this in and I can mull over it and don't have a
yeah,
quick judgment that it's right or wrong, kind of like the masculine TI style,
yeah.
I mean, you're catching yourself doing that, which is good, that's why you're giving it more time to process as opposed to like making a quick judgment, right? But
Yeah, yeah. Because like I've had mistakes. I'm just like I don't want to keep. I want to like move on. So what's the better way to? And Tom Bilyeu talks about this too. He's like when he was younger, he would really try just always be right all the time, but he was stuck in life because he's just trying to play this game of trying to be right. Whereas when he changed his perspective, his paradigm, there's a paradigm shift. He's
right.
like, if my identity is I'm a learner, that means being wrong is good because I'm just gonna learn. I'm just gonna get better, and that's what I discovered for me. It's like even like when I like before university because I didn't like and I worked hard. I worked hard, but I failed my A levels. It wasn't an actual fail, but I couldn't do what I wanted to do because I wanted to do neuroscience, and I worked hard. And it's like either you and like I'm the kind of person where I have to put effort. It's never like, and I've heard some people say, "Oh, I didn't try," and it's kind of to protect themselves
It's a cop
from
out.
the results. Yeah, like, oh, I didn't try. That's why I didn't do well. No, I tried and it didn't work. And I can either like protect myself from that or be like, no, 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 I was wrong in my approach. And I changed my strategy. And I was like, oh, I'm just like, you're so dumb. Like, you did this in the wrong way. And look how far off you got. And like, every time I don't get the right result, I have to then humble myself. And then over time, you just like learn the principle of like you always have to be learning, right? So then it's like you don't really know anything for sure. And I guess it's feminine and I as well. But it's like it's just an ever evolving thing. So yeah, just from experience, I think.
I'm just looking at your situation with typing, between 2 and 4, because it's a direct parallel to me. Like I had the same issue as you, where they thought I
Mm,
was a 4, but then later on completely backtracked. Now I'm a 2, right? But I
yeah,
did provide a lot of evidence for it. Like for example, like, oh, not flex last because I been to 100 countries, and like I have my
yeah,
flex going on, and then um oh um, number 2, because I do have my scams, like quote unquote. I don't think
yeah.
it's scams the right word. I think it's side hustle. And um,
You can call it scam. I mean,
I hate to say this. No, scam's not the right word. I think the number 2 thing, and I hate to admit it, but I actually have this, and a lot of number 2s have this, is ulterior motive. Okay.
yeah,
It's not a scam, it's ulterior motive. That is what number 2s and number 1s have in
yeah,
common. The only difference between the number 1 and 2 is number 2s can read what the number 1s are saying. Like if you take a transcript of what number 1's saying, it's completely not actually what they said from the sensory perspective. You can transcribe it.
right.
It's completely different, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I'll give you an example. Like for example, like I used to work as a personal trainer. I had this one guy,
Yeah,
he was like a bank manager and he was a number 1. He was an ENTJ, right? So he'll tell me shit like, "Oh, yeah, so I'm going to this, I won first place in sales for the entire Canada for the bank, and we're supposed to bring a date. So, I'm gonna bring my friend. She's Miss Hong Kong, like from a beauty pageant." And I'm
yeah,
thinking, and then she's like, and then all the stuff he was saying, it's pretty much transcribing. He's like, I'm the best, and I'm gonna bring this date just to make myself even look better, show everyone
Right. You're
the
reading
best.
into it. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
You're reading
it's
the
like,
NF behind it.
and it's like, and so he's saying things like, "Oh yeah, we're just friends. I just want to help her have a good time." Like, no, you're using her to boost your status because you're bringing like a big
Yeah.
person with you at your date, right? On top of you already winning number one in this content,
Yeah.
So there's like, like the ulterior motive, right? Like what,
Yeah.
and then he hired me as his trainer to get him ripped because they're going to a cruise, so he has to look good. So it's like flex
Yeah.
on top of flex on top of flex, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a number two, I can see all that ulterior motive, but number twos have it too in a different manner. Like it's more like sales, sales and marketing. Like
Yeah.
Owen Cook, for example, right? Owen Cook's more direct with his thing, so it's not ulterior motive because he's like more honest about it. Which I think, like I said, number two, you need to learn to be more honest with it. Like if you're selling something, just be like,
Yeah.
I'm selling this. Okay, don't be
Yeah.
like, oh, kind of like um Dave and Shandy type Tony Robbins is the number two, right? Because they did
Yeah.
like Tony Robbins and Gary Vee. They're like, why is Gary Vee more dominant than him? Because he's the number two, right? And but
Hmm.
like what I don't like about Tony Robbins is he's like very like he's like kind of hiding his sales stuff, even though
Yeah.
he's mentioning it. It's like it comes across very slimy. It's not like
Yeah.
Alex Hormozy is pretty transparent about it, so which is
Yeah.
very respectable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He'll probably make more sales because he's transparent.
That's how, yeah, that is, yeah. I mean, it is almost an ulterior motive to not have an ulterior motive. Like he knows what he's doing, you know.
for Alex Hormozy. Oh yeah, it's funny. It's like
Yeah.
an ulterior motive
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
ulterior motive. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
strategic,
Yeah.
but it's
It's
like
like a
honest,
different game.
but it's also honest. So
Yeah. You
it's like
can't, yeah.
no one's gonna get mad at you because the fact that you're honest, even though it was a
Yeah.
strategic move to do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's it's
Yeah.
a it's a it's a it's a interesting thing for sure. And then the trees and fours, they don't have as much ulterior motive. Especially the trees have a little bit of an ulterior motive in a sense where they'll like kind of like trick the number fours to taking
Yeah.
responsibility on their behalf, so they don't have to take the broad responsibility. So, but it's like a smaller scam. It's a smaller ulterior motive. It's not as big as like the one. The ones have the most, right? So and then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fours have like the least ulterior motive, you could say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. And I don't know. I mean, maybe, I'm IJ as well. So that like conflicts with it. I'm just like, why not? Like, why don't, like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's some things I don't get with the fours or like the um like some things to me feel like they should like it should be like everyone should be interested in that because it gives you leverage, gives you ways of getting your agendas into reality. Like if you want something to work, you need to create a system around it. You need to like you need to scheme, you need to like do stuff. And I know that's my IJ-ness. But yeah, I guess I don't know why they wouldn't, but yeah, I don't know.
the IJ
Because
trap,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the funnel. That's
yeah,
that's what the IJs do. You guys have a funnel, right? And then there's like an endpoint. Usually it's to buy something, but in dating it could be like something else, right? So depending on the funnel that you're in, I guess
yeah,
fitness is the most honest funnel for IJs
yeah.
because you're just trying to
True,
get
true.
fit. So everything you're doing in life, kind of like Brian Johnson, is for the sake of health or
Health, yeah, yeah, yeah.
appearance or whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. All right, cool,
Yeah.
man. Do you have any last thing that you want to cover? We can wrap up the interview
Um,
here because I don't
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
ask you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Last things to cover. I think I covered everything that's important. Um, yeah, I'm pretty much, yeah, I'm going with the social type four.
I think
I guess people,
if I had to guess why you actually got a four, just looking at your history since I've known you for like I don't know 5 or 6 years now, you don't have a side hustle. Like you should have something already. Like you don't have anything. Like you were focused
yeah, I
on
can push back on that as
sure.
well.
You could push back
So,
for sure.
yeah, yeah. So, okay. So people who and this I think that's another stereotype because there are people who aren't twos who do have side hustles. So and then there are twos who, let's say throughout their 20s, didn't have side hustles, who are actually type twos as well. So
Fair
I
enough.
don't think it's a good cross check because sometimes, depending on where people are in life, depending on what decisions they've made. They might make that decision a bit later on. They might be trying to, I am trying to do some things. I'm trying to start a business at the moment. I didn't go into the stuff I'm doing at the moment, but I do think that is a cross check, regardless of whether I'm 4 or 2 or 3 or 100. I think it's what I've seen, it's pretty weak. Like Tom Bilyeu, he he was like a theater person during school, high school. Then he went to film school. He wanted to do film stuff, failed at that, and then he tried to be a stand-up comedian, wasn't good at that, and then he was a teacher and he was unemployed for a while. Then he was a teacher, doing like film stuff because he had
Yeah.
to do something, and then he was employed. And this is like mid 20, like 26. He was employed,
Yeah.
and then he was a copywriter, and then he worked his way up for years, and then when he was at the top, and then obviously everything kind of came out. So it's like, and I kind of mentioned this to Michael as well. It's like, oh, if you typed him mid-20s, you wouldn't say, oh, that's based on not having a side hustle. You wouldn't say, oh, that's not a 2 or whatever. And same with
Right.
like someone like Dr. K. He was a doctor. He failed college. He was a monk for like 6 7 years, and then he went to become a doctor for years, and then he's only an entrepreneur since, I don't know, 3 4 years ago. So like the age of 38, when he became an entrepreneur, and he's a 2. So I think some of these things don't always line up. It's like making a judgment and being like, oh, you need to be this way, but it just varies. Like if you look at the people, it just varies. Like people vary. So yeah, I don't think
I think
anyone should be limited
I
in
think
that
it's
way.
a good cross check if you stack it with other stuff that points
Yeah,
to two. Like so for Tom Bilyeu, he's doing the number two, like hopping around, can't focus on one thing, right? So um because he can't specialize, so that's why he suck at
yeah,
the other stuff, right? Because he's finding, like back then you don't know what your path is, like
yeah,
you don't know if you're
yeah,
a two, you should actually be in management or entrepreneurship. Like
yeah,
those are the path that works best for twos, right? So, you
yeah.
know,
You don't
uh,
exactly right. So
yeah.
yeah, so I'm cautious of any kind of like, oh, you should have this, because you just don't know.
Yeah,
So
but I don't
yeah,
think it should be taken in like sensory context where like, oh, you said those censor words, therefore it's wrong. I'm like, no, dude, that's not it's a clue. It's a clue.
yeah,
When you're putting a case together and like the detective has like those newspaper clippings on the board and they put like the
yeah,
strings, like you're
yeah, yeah,
that's what I mean by that. It's like that is
yeah,
the clue. And then you put all the strings together and then like, oh, yeah, the it's like a puzzle, like anti puzzle, like we're doing, right? It's like, oh,
yeah.
now we have all these clues. They don't it's like Transformers. It doesn't create this thing.
It doesn't fit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
right.
I get that. I have tried stuff. It just hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Um, that's essentially, and I'm still trying stuff, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean I don't know what you are actually, honestly. I don't know if you're a 2 or 4. I honestly don't know. Like I've known you for like a while now. I still don't know because
Yeah,
you don't seem like a completely like a 4, but you don't seem like a 2 either. You're like in a weird like La La Land kind of like, so
yeah.
like it's
Which
definitely
is that's exactly where I want to be, because I liked that freedom, because I'll just do what I need to do. And like, it's just my own self exploration. Like, I'll figure it out. I'm sure, like 5 10 years down the line, it'll be obvious. But I think the cool thing about the social type stuff is everyone kind of knows, like, if you follow what's like good for you, you'll get there. It's like, you'll kind of get there if you know you're happy and going in the right direction. And I think that's the saving grace with this stuff, at least. But yeah, you're thinking.
I just think that people know what their social type is
Yeah,
ultimately because it's like David Shannon already said that that's like the entry level to OPS nowadays. Because if
yeah,
you talk about OPS, people will think you're a nuthead, right? Animals, what the hell's that shit, right? But then like
yeah,
when you talk about social type, everyone knows. Everyone knows. Like it's like the most relatable thing. I have a consumer last friend who's the most
mm,
close-minded person in the world, and then when I told him what social type, he clicked to him right away. Like he got it right away. And it's
yeah,
like, so that's why I feel like what your social type is right away. It's almost like it's like a given. Like it's like if I was young, like in my early 20s, and people gave me the description of like the social type, I would have picked two right away. It would be so obvious to me that I was a two because
yeah,
A, I know I'm not missing flex, but I'm not flex last. But it's not high either. Like it's obvious that it's like it's there, but it's not like
Yeah.
aggressive, right? And then I also know that I have two aspirations. Like even though I was like a fledgling number two, like fledgling young person who doesn't know what to do with my life, I already knew I wanted to be like a leader at something and either managing a team or running my own business. Like I already knew that those two pathways was the right way
Yeah. You already know.
subconsciously. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so like and people that I interviewed, they know what their social type. A lot of people know what their social type is.
Yeah.
That's why for you it's confusing because even you don't know which one you are because you think you're two. I think you're leaning towards two,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're
That was, I
four.
mean, if I were to pick, I would pick that. But like I don't, since I was typed differently, it's like why am I, it's just it doesn't make sense for me to keep asserting it if I actually am at the point where I'm like, I'm not even sure I understand what the
Sure,
parts really mean. So it's like, okay, I don't need to, yeah, I don't need, I'll do the thing that I want to do anyway. It's like, what difference does it make? It's not gonna change, it's not gonna change my, oh, let me now hang out with people more. Like I've already done that. It just didn't make me feel good, like I'm just gonna do the thing that I know works. And I mean, I know that sounds very TI, but I feel much happier. I've made like lots of changes in my life. My life is more going towards the direction I want.
yeah,
And I'm just following that. I'm not following a conceptual thing. I'm just trying to look at objective reality. Look, and I also try and model it on like what's good for how should people be in general? Like what's good, like growth mindset, internal locus of control, like a lot of stuff that's in like the responsibility coin. I wish it wasn't, I don't think it should be a type thing. I feel like though some of those traits might not relate to two specifically. Maybe it should just be something everyone should have. So I'm glad I'm in that limbo because I'm just like I will do all the good things. Like I'll just and that's why you have people of different social types that get up into high positions because there's just like objective universal principles, so I don't know, it does to me, like it doesn't matter anyways anymore, but I think for the community social types does matter. So if someone's like, what type are you, I'll just say four, like that's where my head's at, kind of thing.
sure.
Yeah, that's it, that's my processing. And if anyone's in that weird limbo as well, I hope that gives them an excuse to just be like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll just do my thing. And yeah.
I think as an info dom, I feel like it matters and it helps a lot. Like,
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, your energy dom, so it's a little bit different in that situation.
Yeah.
But anyways, dude, good talking to you again. Good seeing you. And yeah, man. So as of 2024, you are number 4. We'll see if things change in the future.
Who knows? All right.
Yeah.
Take care, man. See
Later,
you.
dude.